What's going on, everyone? Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, coming at you with another episode of Pat's Daily, brought to you by our good friends at Prize Picks and Game Time. Continuing the post-draft coverage, trying to get all the information and insight we can into the Patriots rookie class. And this episode is one I'm very excited for. You've seen Brett and EJ on the show individually, but today I got both the Bootleg Boys on to go through some draft superlatives, get their thoughts on this Patriots rookie class, and maybe kick off with a little Elliott Wolf opinions, whether or not he deserves the GM title, because as we know, the Patriots are going through the actual search now that the draft is over to find their official lead executive in the front office. But before all that stuff, guys, how we doing in the post-draft world now that all the craziness is done and we're kind of moving on, looking forward to camps?
Oh, do you know sleep?
Yeah. You can go first. I probably should have.
I was like, is EJ taking this one or me? I don't know about EJ, but I slept for 8 hours last night and that felt really good. So,
yeah, it's nice to OD on a little sleep. That is not a draft time event, and it does feel weird. We were talking about it a little bit pre-show that there's this weird sort of like, now what do I do with my hands time, and we're figuring it out. We've got stuff to do, but yeah, it is a shift. It's a big shift, but it feels good.
Absolutely. So now that we do know how the Patriots roster is likely going to look heading into the season, at least into the summer, what do you guys think about Elliott Wolf, de facto general manager, now that the reports are that he's pretty much a shoo-in to get the job? They are bringing in minority candidates to satisfy the Rooney Rule. Didn't have a lot of luck at the beginning. 3 people were like, yeah, no, thank you. We're not going through the sham interview. Appreciate the offer. But there were 2 candidates who were brought in and interviewed. So I believe they satisfied it. But again, it seems like it's Wolf's job to lose. Are you guys of the same opinion? How do you think he did as a de facto general manager with such a short resume, obviously, considering he pretty much picked up where Bill left off when they mutually parted ways? And do you think that the Patriots are in good shape relative to where they entered this offseason? This time, EJ, we'll start with you.
I think so. I think, as you said, this is not a typical transition in the NFL. Massive amounts of stability in the New England organization. Everybody's familiar with that. It is a tough act to follow no matter how. And the roster was not in great shape. So that's a bunch of things stacked against anybody coming into that job. I think Elliott Wolf did as well as anyone could. And I think the draft was a solid start. Of course, we won't know for a few years, but again, on the sort of early returns, I don't think he did anything to harm his candidacy. And if they're happy with how that working relationship is going on in the building, no reason not to give him a top shot at the job.
I'll be honest, I was already kind of treating him like the GM as it is, because I mean he's the one who made the Drake Maye pick. So what are they going to do? Like let him pick a quarterback at 3rd overall and then not give him the job? Like I'm almost kind of surprised that this is the way they decided to do this whole thing, of like bring him in, but not for the title that he's actually going to be, and then go through the draft and then elevate him. But now you got to do interviews with other people who know they're not going to get it. Like, why not just hire him as the GM from the start? I don't really understand why they did it this way. But then again, who understands why New England does anything the way that they do? So, but whatever, we're ended up in the right spot in the end.
So my perception of it was I think they just didn't want to go through all the hullabaloo or whatever you want to call it before the actual process, where you potentially have guys coming in and then it's like, all right, Elliott stands there. Well, like, are you actually giving me the power? Like, do I need to look over my shoulder? So I think it was one of those internal things where like even the titles don't make sense, because Matt Groh, if you're looking at just what they're called, is doing Elliott Wolf's job and Elliott Wolf is doing Matt Groh's job. But it seems like they found a kind of system that works behind the scenes, but we're like, you know what? We're not going to have the weirdness of all these other candidates coming in and you don't know what your stance is. We're just going to operate with the guys we already have who've done all this work. And if it continues to go smoothly, then, we'll continue with that path. But that's purely speculation. I'm not really sure, like you said, why New England does anything they do. Even in the post-Belichick era, they're a tough team to nail down. So we kind of briefly touched on it, but the actual draft class, before we get into all the superlatives, what would you give the Patriots in terms of an overall grade, considering they did get Drake Maye, actually double-dipped at quarterback, double-dipped the receiver and offensive line as well, only got 1 defensive player in Marcellus Dial, and obviously added a 3rd shiny new weapon in Jakeem Bell, who I personally thought was an excellent value. So this time, Brett, we'll start with you. What would you give the Patriots for a grade, and how do you like this rookie class based on what we know so far?
If I was going to do letter grades, I would probably go with like an A-, B+ in that general range of like, not absolutely spectacular, like top of the NFL, but still really good, right? And of course, it's because they went into the draft with three major needs: get a quarterback, get a tackle, get a receiver. They got their quarterback. They got multiple receivers. I think they're trying to do the whole, like, we don't have a true number one, but we'll get true number one production in the aggregate between like five guys. Of course, they did invest in the offensive line again in the third round. So like they hit the positions we wanted them to hit. They got good players overall. We loved what they did with the defense last year. This year with the offense's turn, there's on paper a better quarterback, better protection, and better weapons than this team has had in a while, plus still having a really good defense if everybody stays healthy. I don't understand the people that are looking at New England as like potentially going to be back in the top 5, let alone the top 10 next year.
That's rich.
I think they would have barely been inside the top 10 this year were it not for the injuries on defense. Like, that defense is too good for them to be a bad team. And I think the offense is going to be a lot improved as well. Like, this is going to be a huge improvement year over year because of these last two draft classes. I wouldn't be surprised if not get a 7th seed, but are at least in the conversation for a 7th seed up until Christmas time.
I think that's fair. And I agree. I don't think they're going to be quite to the level that maybe even the most optimistic fan thinks they'll be. I'm usually Mr. Sunshine and Rainbows, try to find the positive side. So I don't think they're going to be quite there, but I do agree. If all goes well, I think, if Baker and Polk are guys who contribute early and they're really a genuine part of your offense, the left tackle situation does work out. I think Jacoby Brissett can get them over the hump of, yeah, they were a 4-win team last year, but a lot of that had to do with the defense doing its job and the quarterbacks just like losing their minds and missing opportunities, giving the ball away, where it's like, all right, we don't have to be a great offense, but we really can't be the worst offense in the NFL. So I'm on the same page. EJ, what do you think? What's your grade and what's your outlook?
The grade is very similar, and we should say that Brett and I don't look at these before we do them, and we have a lot more fun when we just roll them out. I gave him a B+. I think any draft with a quarterback picked up high is defined by the success of that quarterback. That's just a thing. Outside of that truth, look, the Pats got a couple of receiving options that they really needed. They have offsetting skill sets. I like that. They didn't grab two of the same guy. Grabbed a tackle they think will contribute as a starter eventually, maybe sooner. We'll see. And snagged one of my favorite down the board guards. So overall, a lot of needs. I'm not going to say they're hamstrung. They had plenty of ammo, but not super high picks. And I think, again, they hit multiple spots they needed to multiple times and gave themselves the best possible chance to do exactly what you were talking about, Taylor, and be an average offense. Let the defense do its job, and the imbalance will be in this thing.
And at the end of the day, the front office can only do so much. It's going to come down to the coaching staff, the development, and that's the real wait and see part. A lot of the time, it's not really players that bust as long as they're putting in the work. Sometimes the coaching staff just doesn't get you in position to really live up to your talent. So we will see. These are way too early grades. Always got to put that asterisk. But it seems like the Patriots so far did pretty well based on the information we have. We got our grades. We got our, superlatives coming up. But first, quick word from our friends at Prize Picks. Be right back.
Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks, as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball and hockey entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I personally love Prize Picks because they're super easy to use, easy to navigate, and they offer injury insurance, so your entries stay live even if one of your players gets injured. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. Download the app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
All right, fellas, for the first superlative, man, words are really hard on this Thursday. But first, for the superlatives, little enunciation there. We're going to go with your favorite picks, guys. So, EJ, You first, who was your favorite overall pick in the Patriots draft class?
It was Drake Maye, and the Patriots basically listened to everybody saying, our team's not ready enough for a QB. Okay, bet. We'll see about that. We think he's good enough. So love the confidence. We'll find out. But I really can't hate the sort of line in the sand. This is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it this way. There's two different schools of thought about how to do it. Patriots said, we think Drake Maye is good enough to get the quarterback first and build around him. We'll see how that goes. He's got plenty of skills, and now it's a race, right? It's a race to surround him with enough talent. And again, like you said, have the coaching staff develop him before that rookie window runs out in the contract, because that is one of the greatest advantages in any sport going right now is a rookie quarterback contract in the NFL. And so, it's pedal to the metal. It's got to be. You got to get as many players, as many ways as you can. And Maye's got to hold up his end, and we'll see how it goes. But it was mostly the confidence of the Patriots not saying, oh, okay, you're all right. We need tons of picks. We'll just go down the board and pick up a bunch of other guys. Brett said it earlier in draft season. History's littered with a lot of teams that took the picks and screwed it up. So they took the shot. It's a bold gambit, and we'll see how it works out. But I think as a Patriots fan, you got to love that. They're not conceding anything.
Yeah, listening to the comments after the draft where Mayo and Wolf were pretty clear that, we knew for a while that we were going to get Drake. We never got an offer that we really considered moving. He was our guy. Though they were clear they liked all three of the top quarterbacks, which is fair. They were all super talented. I am curious. There are a lot of factors that go into it, so no one's holding you to this. But what do you think Drake Maye's timeline could be in terms of potentially getting on the field? Obviously, with Jacoby, there's no rush. He can take as much time as he needs. But I also think you saw at UNC how productive and deadly he could be despite having so little talent around him. And I think at the very least, the Patriots have enough NFL talent where he's not going to be out there running for his life or thrown into contested windows all the time. I feel like they could take some of that off his plate with the scheme and with the personnel.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's probably going to be a short leash for Jacoby. He's not going to be able to take too many missteps. He better keep those ankles healthy, because anytime he sits on the bench, if Drake comes in and provides a spark, the Patriots are going to go, you know what? This is a good chance to get plenty of reps. Let's go.
I would say, because my favorite pick is obviously Drake Maye as well. Alert, right?
We have a consensus.
To add on to that, and to add on to your follow-up, the reason why I was super high on Drake Maye, and why, if I was the Patriots, and it kind of took me a while to get there because I wanted to get through the whole class, and early on I advocated for maybe you do the Marvin thing and then you try to come back. And ultimately I landed on, if Drake's there, you take Drake. And the reason why is I went to the Caleb Williams Pro Day with EJ. He came down to LA. We went up to Caleb's Pro Day, and there we met Caleb's quarterback coach, Will Hewlett, who also had Tom Gomerly there, who's, I don't even know how best to describe Tom, biomechanics expert / physical therapist / one
of those.
One of those, right? Who's a quarterback guru and a trainer all in one. Imagine Alex Guerrero, but more. He's the guy behind the guy behind the guy, right? And they also happen to work with Anthony Richardson, and they also happen to work with Brock Purdy. And I had a very long conversation with them about Brock when EJ and I saw him at the Shrine Bowl a couple of years ago, and he did not look good at all, right? And then, I saw him 5 months later at the 49ers training camp, where I was like, oh my God, he's the best quarterback on the field. What the hell? And I didn't know that he was working with these guys, right? And what I had found out through that conversation was that they tore down and rebuilt his mechanics in about 2 months, in between where he was at the Shrine Bowl to where he was at the NFL draft. And of course, the 49ers took note of that, and they really liked Brock to begin with. They liked his process or everything like that. They added, through this training, they added 10 miles per hour to his passes in 2 months. They just did the same thing to Austin Reed too, who's now going to be the QB3 in Chicago. They picked him up as UDFA. He went from, I think it was 50 or 51 to the low 60s in about 2 months of working with them. And they were going through, what they teach mechanically, and how college quarterbacks maybe don't get properly coached on a lot of things in terms of repeatable mechanics, under both stress and non-stress within the pocket. How the feet and the hips are linked together with the core and everything like that. And how a lot of these guys, they don't really find out how to throw until they get to the NFL, when they can afford all these, private coaches, because NFL staffs are not teaching them how to throw. NFL staffs are worried about like install and stuff like that. Like you got to figure out all the mechanic stuff on your own. And so I looked at Drake Maye and I was like, okay, yeah, mechanically he's flawed, but now he's not working with Will and Tom. He's working with others, but there's a bunch of people in this space that do that kind of thing. And so, I had a conversation with them. I was like, is Drake fixable? I'm like, yeah, Drake's fixable. It takes like one off season. Like you can fix that. They just have to be willing to do it. And I think Drake is. And so I care a lot less about talented but mechanically flawed quarterbacks now, because there's a whole cottage industry of people dedicated to fixing mechanically flawed quarterbacks. And once that stuff is fixed, that's how you end up with Brock Purdy in the MVP race. That's how you end up with Josh Allen. That's how you end up with all these guys that came out of nowhere and all, got good. I mean, that's how they get good is they discard everything they learned in college. They completely rebuild and retool themselves. I don't see how Drake Maye couldn't be another one of those. And if you get a really consistently good, from a mechanics perspective for Drake Maye with that much talent, like, yeah, that's going to work. It's going to work really well. So I'm all about it. I think it was a great pick.
Especially when you see how often he can make those pinpoint throws and the like crazy arm strike and everything just off vibes. Like everything's out of whack. His hips are here, his eyes are there. And it's just like, oh yeah, no, it's still on the money with like amazing arm talent. Yeah. Okay. We know that at least if he is consistent, he'll be great. But what's really going to push him over the edge is the fact that things can be going terribly and you still get that level of talent shining through. Also, funny you mentioned Brock Purdy, because Joe Milton actually said, he was asked like who he kind of models his game after. He said he didn't really model it after anybody, but in terms of footwork, he watched Brock Purdy. So I thought that was really interesting. And also in this Alex Van Pelt offense, that's why Drake Maye also my favorite pick for what it's worth. Pretty easy one there. In Alex Van Pelt's offense, how you mentioned, NFL staffs aren't really fixing your mechanics. It's mostly about strategy and preparing for the next week. With Van Pelt, he has a very specific way of doing things where he says in the shotgun, I want your left foot up because I want it to be more like Mozart, not like Metallica and the quick game and all these things. So he's going to have someone who in season can make sure that he's got these things down and is doing it in the repeatable way, especially in that West Coast offense where the timing and the rhythm are so important. So, yeah, I agree. You hope that all those things will get worked out, but if the biggest error is something that all these people who are much smarter than me are saying is repeatable, I'm all right with that. All right, next pick, we're going to go with best value for this one. So not necessarily your favorite overall, but where did you see somebody get taken and you were just like, oh, that's going to be a steal? Go with you
TJ,
first.
I'll let you handle this one.
Okay. Let's do it. I got to do better. This is my first time in a long time doing.
I know you got two heads. Like, no, I'm going to go with Javon Baker in the fourth. He has a really good chance to outplay his draft status. Like, I think he was drafted a little bit late. That helps a guy in terms of not coming in with a ton of expectation. With a guy like him, it also puts a massive chip on his shoulder. That's already been on display. He is ready to tell the entire world, I'm better than you thought I was. I love guys like that coming in. And he's got gobs of talent, like physical talent. We were just talking about Drake Maye in terms of like physical skills. This is, guy that started at Alabama, ended up at UCF, plays with a wild athletic style, had the, second highest ADOT in this class in terms of wide receivers, is explosive down the field. And Drake's going to have to throw it to somebody. Now, the Patriots don't really have anybody that matches that description, so he's not really doubling up, right? And it may not be a volume exercise, but in terms of explosive plays and that fuels success in the NFL, he's going to be a guy that the sights are squarely on. And if he can work his way into the offense and be where Van Pelt needs him to be on time and then just let it loose a couple of times, people are really going to fall in love with his skill set. So I like his potential, and I like the fact that he's not coming in as a, say, second round pick where everybody's like, hey, man, you got to do both. You got to have 80 catches. You got to have, 1,200 yards or we're going to hate it, which is one of my least favorite things about NFL fans is if a receiver doesn't hit 1,000 yards, they're nobody. And I'm like, well, not that many guys hit 1,000 yards. Baker might not hit 1,000 yards, but he might do it in close to like 30 catches, which would be pretty damn cool.
He's going to get 45 yards a catch.
Yeah.
Deshaun Jackson all over again.
That's right.
Literally looking at his stats last season, it's like he caught 4 fewer passes, but he had 1,000-yard season. So it's like, yeah, no, he may not have, the raw numbers that you're looking at, but we look at the averages, you're like, oh, this guy's pretty damn efficient. All right, Brett.
I would say, so I don't want to double up too much on EJ. My original pick was going to be Baker because I thought he was going to go Polk. So I'm going to go Polk. I'm going to switch them.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily value from the perspective of lowest rated or highest rated receiver that they got later, which I think would be Baker. I would say best value from the Patriots draft class for Drake Maye, like the value that a certain receiver brings to Drake Maye. The value that Polk brings to Drake Maye is he is not going to drop anything. Like he would willingly walk into the middle of the freeway to convert on 3rd and 7. Like I see him as another Jacoby Myers plus potentially. It's got some of the best hands in this class, makes crazy acrobatic catches that nobody has any business making. And, one of EJ and I's favorite phrases is the job description is in the title, wide receiver. You got to catch the ball. There were a lot of negative plays on Drake Maye's film that honestly I thought were caused by his receivers, either having the ball bounce off his hands or just running the wrong route or just not doing the job description. Polk is going to do the job description. He's going to be reliable. He's going to be a warrior over the middle. He's going to make crazy catches 20, 30 yards down the field. Is he nearly as explosive as Baker? I don't think so. Is he going to be as splashy as Baker? I don't think so. Is he going to be the guy that this team, when they're in a really rough spot and they just need somebody to make a play, is he going to be that guy? I think he will, just like Julian was for a while, just like Amendola, just like Wes. I mean, he's not obviously that archetype. That's more of the Pop Douglas archetype. But in terms of just, can we rely on you to get us out of a jam like all those guys did? I think that's what Polk is going to do for Drake.
And you mentioned Drake. What I loved about both of these guys is it felt like once you got past Xavier Legette, who it's been reported they were trying to trade up for, you guys know that was my guy. Didn't happen. It's all right. 2 receivers are better than 1. But it felt like at some point after him, you were going to say, okay, do we want the guy with size who's going to catch everything, maybe can also separate, or do we want explosiveness? And it felt like it was kind of hard to find both. So I did like the fact that they went with Hay. Like you said, watching Drake Maye, it was so frustrating how often there would be a play to be made. And it's just like, hey, the quarterback can't literally do everything, and guys aren't capitalizing on opportunities. It feels like Baker, especially being more of a separator, can be that guy for him early on who's that reliable target. And then Polk, where, I mean, even if a guy's tripped all over him, he's still going to make the catch. And they kind of overlap in that way. Kind of similar to the Drake Maye question, I'm curious. How soon do you think these guys will be able to contribute, and what do you think their roles will be? Because I'm seeing Baker as the X, Jalen Polk is like more of a Z, but also slot. I would find it hard to believe that he didn't work his way into the rotation by like mid-season just because he's so talented. But what do you guys think? Brett, will keep the ball rolling with you.
Well, I don't know about EJ, but I kind of feel like week 1, like they could get snaps. I don't know if they're going to get all the snaps week 1 because you do got, some incumbent veterans. You still got Bourne there. We liked what Pop Douglas did as a rookie. I don't know what they're going to do with Juju, but like, wouldn't be surprised if he's getting some snaps because like he can block, right? But as far as receivers that can bring juice to the offense, they're probably 2 of the top 3 on the team. So why wouldn't you give them snaps immediately, regardless of who's going to be the quarterback? So I don't know about you, EJ, but I kind of feel like 20, 30 snaps each week 1 should probably be counted on.
I would say 20 to 30 for Polk, and I really see him as an X because of what Brett was talking about. It's not necessarily that I think people get too hung up on X's being able to get down the field deep. And there are a lot of X's that, again, it's just the guy that you need to go to. Like when we need a thing, can you get it? And Polk can get that in the short to mid-range pretty much anywhere. He can get it across the field. He can get it at the boundary. He can get it back shoulder. He can get it just by climbing over a guy, catching a ball. And I think that really puts him more in the explosiveness, the ability to get down the field, the versatility to get in slot. For me, that puts Baker on a sort of Z slot path. Because of that, because of the mix of receivers or lack thereof that the Patriots have sort of in the room right now, I think Polk actually probably gets on the field sooner on the left-hand side and has more snaps overall than Baker. Baker is going to be that time to threaten receiver, right? He's going to come in as wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4, and everybody's going to go, oh, damn, the fast guy's here. Like we got to do something else. And again, that's not going to be as many snaps. So it might even be 2-1 Polk to Baker in the early going. But again, we're going to see those fewer but explosive plays from Baker that people are really going to get excited about. And you're going to see that steady, consistent production from Polk that I think more than anything is going to have Drake Maye going, hey man, don't take that guy off the field. Like, I like that guy. And when you're, highly drafted rookie quarterbacks, like, no, I've got a connection with that guy, and you need something on 3rd and 7, you're asking me, I want him. And that's how young receivers really, I would say, earn or just get locked into playing time as the quarterback goes, no, look, you've seen what we've done the last 3 weeks. Like, don't take him off the field in high pressure situations. And once that hurdle's over, once that confidence is established, we're going to see a lot of snaps for Polk because he is just wildly reliable.
What you saw what happened with Puka last year with the Rams, where it became very obvious within the first 3 games that Stafford was like, he's never coming off the field. He's getting 70 snaps a game, guys. I'm sorry. Give him some Gatorade, but you cannot take him away from me. And like he became comfort food for that offense. And I wouldn't be surprised if Polk is the same thing. I'm not saying he's going to put up 1,500 yards, but you get what I'm saying. Like role-wise, whether it's Jacoby or Drake, they're going to be like, I don't know. He catches the freaking ball. Don't put him on the sidelines.
That's the thing with this young core. It's going to be exciting because they do get to learn and grow together. It's not like the Tom Brady era where a young guy's going to come in and God help him. If he's going to leave with his confidence, is he going to run out with his tail between his legs? We don't know because Tom Brady's not putting up with any bullshit. But it's funny, EJ, because my prediction for the guys was kind of flipped in terms of snap count and role, but because they're versatile, because they can win in so many different ways, I give both these guys shout outs for what they do when they're not targeted. They're nasty, high-effort run blockers. You see, I'm going through Baker and doing a deep dive where, his quarterback throws a bad pick. Baker's the one who punches it out. He's sprinting downfield to see if he can throw a block or celebrate with his teammates. They do all the little things where it's hard to see them on the sideline because they both seem like maniacs when it comes to preparation as well. So I could see either one of these guys or both emerging as top targets, whether it's X, Z, what have you. It's going to be exciting to see how that actually plays out. We got a couple more superlatives before the show's over, but first, quick word from our friends at Game Time. Be right back.
With the NBA playoffs in full swing and the Celtics looking like the best team in the East, I'm trying to go to a game so I can witness their greatness in person. And to get those tickets, I'm going to be using Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Buying tickets on Game Time is extremely easy. All you have to do is click on the team that you want to see, browse through the available options, then click on those games. Then you can go through filters like price, where you want your seat to be, all that good stuff. Click, get a panoramic view of the seat that you're going to buy, and it can be as easy as a one-click purchase for your ticket. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price.
Boy, you're really testing the basketball gods with that one. Saying the Celtics clearly the best in the. Have you seen Jalen Brunson? Oh,
okay.
You're playing with
I'm not gonna tell you when exactly that read was recorded, but I may have muted myself very quickly. I'll just say that. I hope I didn't bring any bad juju. I'm just trying to do my job here. Maybe I need to update. But moving on, fellas. Let's get into some guys that haven't gotten quite as much attention. Drake Maye, the receivers, those are the shiny objects. But how about some of the biggest sleepers in this class, guys who were chosen that you think aren't getting quite as much attention considering what they could potentially bring to the offense? EJ, we'll start with you.
For biggest sleeper, it was Layden Robinson. And Layden Robinson was a guy that I really liked. I've got a habit that I've developed over the last decade or so of sending out a few receipts, 5 to 10 receipts to guys who can keep me honest. They're not posted anywhere. They're just guys I'm like, hey, this guy, it's not necessarily my guy. It's more like, I just have a feeling about this guy. Not a lot of people are talking about him. Just put this one in the folder and check me after the draft. Layden Robinson was one of my guys, and he got picked way earlier than I thought he would. And I liked him. I thought he was a 6th, 7th round pick as it was. That was, again, probably going to outplay his draft status. He got picked earlier, and I was like, oh, first thing I did while I was sitting on Brett's couch during a live stream was text the guy I sent the receipt to. And I was like, okay, that, I like him. But anyways, I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be really solid. Jaheim Bell, who I love, got picked later than I thought he would. So it's a little tougher to call him a sleeper. Love his versatility. You said curiosity about the season for the wide receivers. I am hyper curious, and I was going to be no matter where Jaheim Bell went. How are they going to use him? How are they going to employ him? Where are they going to line him up? He can line up all over the field. He's got a ton of skills. He's good, really good at most of them. And I just want to see what the Patriots saw and what they really want to leverage. I think he's going to be fun even on kickoffs. So it's sort of split between those two guys. One I thought would be picked later, got picked earlier, and vice versa for Jaheim Bell. So
with Alex Van Pelt's creativity, that's going to be really fun with Jaheim Bell, because he's one of the guys who's not just going to be like, all right, you're a fullback. He's going to be like, nope, we're going to put you a little bit everywhere, see what you can do. Kind of like a Harrison Bryant type of role I see for him, where he's the guy who motions a lot, comes in the backfield, is that pseudo fullback, but also can be in the slot, in the backfield, and all that stuff. But I'm curious with Layden Robinson, how do you think he fits this Alex Van Pelt scheme, where it's a lot of wide zone, but they also have a lot of pulling involved? Because I know he's not the best in terms of like mirroring just raw athleticism, but he is the guy with burst, length, and a really nasty kind of play style.
Yeah, if you get him running in a straight line, I like it because he's got tremendous size. Again, that sort of short area footwork, what we call lateral quickness, where he really is just moving side to side, but keeping his face towards the defender. He's pretty long limb for that. He's a big dude. You don't see him as sort of twitchy or jitterbuggy, but again, when he turns at that size and runs, you go, oh, all right, he can move. So we'll see if he can hit targets on the move. Alex Van Pelt's going to challenge him to do that in whichever role he puts him in. Bottom line is, if he does, it is a lot of dude coming downhill. He did a lot in college. Fun player to watch.
Excited for that. All right, Brett, who's your sleeper, brother?
It's got to be Jaheim Bell for me.
Okay.
I honestly thought he could have come off the board in like the 4th round.
Yep.
And I'm not 100% sure what the reason was why he fell. All I know is that he's one of the best yak weapons in this class at any position. 8.1 yards after the catch per reception, which is barely behind Malachi Corley, who was seen as like the preeminent yak weapon in this class. And he's a tight end. He did that at 240. So you can get him involved in the screen game. I think he's a great blocker in space, a high effort blocker in space. And honestly, the thing that intrigues me the most is I want to see what he does on special teams with the new kickoff return structure, because he's one of the rare tight ends that I think you could actually give him some shots at kick returns. Or if you want to do like what the XFL teams did with this structure, where you're like incorporating end arounds and crazy stuff like that. Like, this is a tight end you can give an end around on a kickoff and actually have him do some damage with it. Plus his blocking and space ability. I saw him as not that far off from Ben Sinnott, who went in the 2nd round in terms of role, skill set, everything like that. They're both great yak weapons. They just do it differently. Sinnott's going to run over you. Bell's going to run around you. But I didn't think there was 6 rounds of difference between the two of them. So to get him in the 7th, again, there must have been something that we don't know about. Like, I'm talking like medical or something that caused him to fall that far. Because as a football player, he is not a 7th round pick. He's a 4th round pick. And to get him that late, I thought was a steal. So hats off to them.
As a returner, that idea, I kind of thought about it. I was like, that reminds me of Garrett Blunt. That year where Belichick was just like, yeah, screw everyone who's trying to tackle on special teams. You're going to have to get through this guy. And it worked out pretty well, because obviously he's big, he's fast, and just is a pain in the ass to try to bring down. I'm curious what you guys think about Jaheim Bell really taking a step forward in terms of the type of threat he is at the NFL level. Because at Florida State, he did have that, it's hard to call it like elusiveness underneath, but he's just so tough to bring down. It's not like, oop, I made you miss. It's just like, no, he's a load. But at the same time, on the few downfield targets I saw, it's like, no, this guy can track the ball. He can make tough adjustments. It feels like there's more there than what they actually used him as. And then I saw some clips for the Senior Bowl, and it's like, oh, yeah, no, he was like beating guys downfield pretty consistently. So do you think he can kind of bring that element out of his game more with that type of opportunity at the NFL level?
I do, because especially if you're looking at what they had at Florida State, like if we're just talking about throwing down the field, they were always going to do it to Keon and Johnny Wilson before they ever did it to Jaheim. And so that just wasn't the role that he played there, but it doesn't mean that he can't do it. It's just what his coaches were asking him to do. But we did see like a couple seam balls thrown his way where he ripped it wide open, because he's a 4'6" guy, like he's got speed. So just because it wasn't the main thing doesn't mean it can't be the main thing. And I certainly feel like, given who the Patriots have on their roster, he's probably already one of the more dangerous like seam ripper threats they've got. So they might actually have him do it a lot more than Florida State ever did. And I'm excited by that, because it's another thing that might get him on the field as a rookie. And the more you can do, the more valuable you are, the more snaps you're going to get. Next thing you know, you look up and you got a 7th round tight end who's got like 35 catches, and you're like, whoa, okay, that's a hit. Let's go.
Rookie takeover. I like it. EJ, you got any closing thoughts on Jaheim Bell?
I love him, and I really think he's going to be a fun piece for Alex Van Pelt to use out of non-traditional alignments. And by that, I mean putting him in the slot, having him do a little crack block, and then do chip leak out of that. You ever seen anybody get to 4 verts with the fullback? Like, it's going to happen. Texas routes where they motion him from maybe the wide slot. So now he's covered by a nickel. He's lined up in the backfield. Looks like he's going to go run over the nickel and cuts 90 degrees through the middle of the field. And now he's got a little 4 or 5 yard completion. And we see that ability to turn and run, run over smaller defenders, kind of wheel away for bigger defenders with that speed. And I think there's going to be some really fun plays that it might start out looking like something completely different. And that the whole point of that is to get the wrong defender on a guy like Jaheim Bell. We're like, oh, you got the fullback. He's going to be like option 5 in this play. And then it's Jaheim Bell. He's not option 5. He's option like 2. So
I hope Alex Van Pelt's listening, because I really like where your head's at. I think I've been on the same page or somewhere very similar. All right, fellas. The last draft superlative we're going to go with for this one, the most surprising picks for you. So this could be like a value thing, just like, I didn't think the Patriots would be interested, kind of like how I responded when Juju was signed as a free agent last year. Anything like that. Brett, I'll go with you first on this one.
It's hard to criticize the class, and so I think I'll criticize the entire league at this point and just kind of lump the Patriots in with it.
Okay.
What did Garrett Greenfield do? Like you got a 6-year experience left tackle with a 38-inch vertical who had like 57 starts, pressure allowed percentage under 2%, which is crazy low. How did nobody take him at all? And like, to my knowledge, there wasn't a medical, like I have no idea. Right. And that includes the Patriots. Like, you need a left tackle. You took one. We like that. You couldn't just like throw a late day 3 pick at it just to make sure. Cause like, that's a good tackle. That's an NFL tackle that somehow didn't get drafted. So shame on you, NFL. That's a good player that they all let slip through their fingers.
Well, as you saw with Belichick on the Pat McAfee show, the Patriots had to address cornerback. It was their 3rd biggest need. So, they had to go get Marcellus style. They were like, yeah, tackle's important, but we got to satisfy Belichick's board. But EJ, what do you got, buddy?
More position than player. Again, there weren't players in the class that I felt were, wild reaches or anything else. I was just surprised they waited to get an OT until the 3rd round. It's not the OT that they got. It's that they waited that long, especially getting Drake Maye. Now, crying need for wide receiver. I understand that. But wide receiver and tackle were 2 of the deepest position groups in this draft. And again, if you're going to take a scattergun approach, which is kind of what they ended up doing with wide receiver, do you not want that tackle sooner? And again, it's the classic, if I take this tackle in round 2, what can I get at wide receiver in round 3, or vice versa? And after the tackle run pretty much started, I would say the second wave tackle run really started, it became really clear, like, if we wait until the 3rd round, we're going to get what's left. And there's going to be 3, maybe 4 guys, depending on your board. I think they got one of those guys. I think they absolutely got wide receivers they wanted more. It was just it was a point of emphasis of, hey, let's start with the lines, especially if you're going to do the quarterback first. Like, let's keep that quarterback upright and, take some shots on some targets that might slip, because again, there's so many, both tight ends and wide receivers in this draft that, you could get a little farther down the board. So it was just waiting around. It's a pretty minor quibble. If that's your biggest upset from an entire draft, the team did great.
And based on reports, I think they tried to go up and get Tyler Guyton. I think it was just too big of a jump, but I think there was some effort there. And then I feel like Patrick Paul was a really good fit for them, but he kind of kicked off that second tackle run. Yep. And based on who they've been getting in the past couple of years, I just think they value experience and age a pretty decent amount, just because I don't think, like with Kingsley Suamataia, who was my guy, who I was really hoping they were going to get at left tackle, seemed like, all right, this is a younger guy. He's got relatively a good amount of experience, but I'd rather the older guy who's got a ton of snaps, who I can teach him a different technique, but he's going to be able to catch on a little bit quicker than someone who's still kind of learning the game to a certain level. So I agree. It was interesting. And again, still Caden Wallace, not a bad player, but I know when he was picked, I was like, I don't understand this. Is this about Unwenu? Is this strange? Like, what exactly is going on? But, still solid player. But before we close out, I am curious on your guys' thoughts about the left tackle position, because, Ellie Wolf has said they think they have NFL players at all the spots where they really needed to address them in the draft. So Chuks Okorafor has basically been penciled in as their starting left tackle. And then you got Caden Wallace, who's going to make the transition. Both guys are transitioning, but Chuks did do it in college, so there's a little more familiarity there. How do you feel about how the Patriots at this point are going into the season with the left tackle spot, with a veteran with a lot of starting experience, and then with a guy who, ideally would play at some point in the season, whether it's as an extra tight end or what have you, but ideally will be the successor after this season?
I think what they're going for, and first of all, I want to say I agree with EJ. Just my meathead brain tends to gravitate towards O-line first, then receiver. Kind of like, talk about the Chargers, take Joe Alt first, then you get Ladd, instead of taking Marvin and then hope to God you get something, Roger Rosengart, whatever. So my caveman brain is like, yes, offensive line first. But I think the reason why the Patriots went the other way is they're looking at the structure of their system. I think they're thinking, okay, well, if we're going to run the ball a lot, and we're going to have a significant portion of our passes be off play action, and we're going to have a significant portion of our passes not being in the traditional drop back pass game. It's either going to be play action or RPOs. And like best case scenario, we only have like 12 to 15 like traditional drop back passes the entire game. We think we can survive on those 12 to 15 reps with lesser offensive tackle talent, as long as we can run the ball and scheme up protection, so to speak, right? So if they can slow down the pass rush to the point where they can survive with, Okorafor or Wallace at left tackle, I think that's kind of what they're going for. But they wouldn't. Again, is it something that I would have done? I probably would have played it safe and gone the other way. But I kind of feel like if I'm approaching it from the perspective of the team, that's what they're thinking is, are we going to take, at pick 37, or maybe are we going to give resources to trade it for Tyler Guyton when we might only have, on a good day, 12 drop back passes the entire game? Like, I kind of feel like resource allocation wise, that's where their head was at.
Makes a lot of sense. What do you got, EJ?
It's always fun when a de facto GM has to come out and say, yeah, we have NFL caliber players at all the spots we need. Like, thanks GM. That's amazing.
Boston media, man.
I trust me.
Like, I'm not.
I get it. It'll be really interesting, and I think it's actually what they want, right? Sure, everybody would love to have a cornerstone left tackle that there was absolutely no question that guy's supposed to start, and if he's healthy, he's going to be in there for the next 3 or 4 years. Those guys don't grow on trees. They're very hard to find. They're super expensive. If you're in this position, it's great to start with an experienced veteran. It's also nice to have a promising young rookie who can challenge, and they're looking for their best 5, and that's going to evolve over the course of the season. If Chuks struggles, like, we'll see the rookie. Absolutely. If somebody gets hurt, it's not the situation that, my team was in last year where one tackle went down and everybody was like, oh, damn, I guess we're done. So you want to have that situation, and they do now. And I don't know what they're rooting for. I don't know what's in their hearts, but they are prepared for eventualities. And I think that's, again, with a team that had this many needs prior to the draft, you really can't ask for more. That's about the best they were going to do, and it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, and Brett, to your point, I feel like Van Pelt's offense is extremely quarterback and offensive line friendly. Last year, quite literally had to be. They went through a run of offensive tackles and quarterbacks, and you got to see where, when Van Pelt got here, he mentioned how he's been in a ton of systems and he's got some versatility and knows how to, accommodate for different positions. You saw it. Last year, it was a lot of chip help, a lot of max protection, a lot of play action, and a lot of running the ball. All the things that really don't expose your quarterback and offensive tackle quite as much, which I do think will be a huge help considering the Patriots, have their veteran bridge options, but are hoping at some point they can incorporate these young guys and really see what they've got in these young core. Fellas, this was a blast. Thank you so much for stopping by and making out time. It really means a lot to me. Now, let the people know where they can find you and what excellent stuff you got coming down the pipeline on Bootleg and your respective channels.
EJ, I'll let you be the salesman on this one.
Oh, I get to do the bootleg bit? We are about ready to launch into our summer preview series. So I'm writing it right now. We're going to start recording it in a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks after that, it'll be hitting the streets. We will have an episode for every team in the NFL. 32 episodes this summer, one for your team. So you can yell at us about that, all the things that we got wrong. But we'll try and bring a really holistic perspective to it. Everything the team has done in the offseason to move from where they ended last season to hope springs eternal for the 2024 season.
I think the Patriots are also one of the first episodes we're recording too.
They
I think we're starting in the East. So they were one of our last episodes last year.
I remember.
We did
I
East
was
last,
waiting.
so
Waited I literally studied for all the teams the Patriots played in the first month of the season. I was watching those videos over and over and over. I'm like, I am going to know because you guys do a fantastic job covering all the teams. Bootleg Power Score, a really good way to just kind of contextualize where all these guys are and where they need to get to. So super excited for that, fellas. Thank you very much once again for stopping by. And thank you all, as always, for watching. Now, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We will see you next time. Peace, y'all.